and I'm part of BookOrators, a global student organization that aims to instill a love for literature in youth. As part of our guest speaker series, we are joined by Putri, a teenager who has written her own collection of short stories. Putri lives in Jakarta, Indonesia, and is a rising senior. So Putri, thank you so much for joining us today. And to start off, would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure, thanks, Marika, and I'm so happy to be here today. So, hi everyone. As Marika said, my name is Putri. I'm a rising senior in Jakarta, Indonesia, on the other side of the world, or wherever you're listening from. And my book is titled My Canvas of Words, and it's a collection of short stories, descriptive and narrative. I published it in October of 2020, and I've received so much love from this passion project of mine, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with you all today.
Thank you, Putri. And I guess that kind of helps us transition into our next question, which is about how exactly were you able to start this book?
Sure. So I would definitely say that my biggest inspiration for my book was my mother. I never thought I would publish a book in my life ever. So it wasn't something I was planning in freshman year, or wasn't something that was in the works since I was in 7th grade or something like that. Not at all. I did not plan on publishing a book. So the reason why I actually got around to publishing my book was because I just enjoyed writing in my own free time. I would write short stories, and I showed them to my mom one day, and my mom said, "Putri, these are really good. You could publish these." And at the time, I was very insecure of my work. I think for any writer, for any creator, for any creator of art, any artist, the initial thought when somebody thinks that your work is good and your work should be recognized is that, oh, I don't think I'm good enough. So that was my initial thought process. And so after encouragement from my mother, from my family, but especially my mother, who herself is an author and has published 2 books, I worked with an illustrator. Her name is Dinda, and she's a budding fashion illustrator in Indonesia. And after working on it for around a year to 2 years, producing the illustrations and also editing my work, I finally had the final product and published it in October last year. So yeah, it's kind of a funny story how I ended up publishing my book.
Yeah, that's really great that your mom is an author too. It must kind of run in the family.
Yeah, so for my descriptive stories, definitely my travels have inspired a lot of those stories. And I wouldn't say that they're exact recounts of my travels. Of course not. They're entirely fictional. Sometimes people ask me, are these real stories from your own life? And I was like, no. Please take it with a grain of salt. It's fiction.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And so for my narrative stories, I would say that I actually do take a lot of inspiration from books that I read, from as you mentioned, Mark Twain. I especially look up to the author Haruki Murakami. I really admire his style of writing where I'll backtrack a bit. So Haruki Murakami is the author who's really sparked the love for short stories in me. I read his book, Blind Willow Sleeping Woman, quite a while back, and ever since then I've always loved short stories, and I really admire how he can come up with the most bizarre scenarios. I'm not sure if you've read a Murakami book, but so his works are really some are really dystopian, some are really bizarre and just incredulous, but at the base of all of it, at the base of all his stories is a human story. And I really appreciate and look up to how he can come up with the most insane scenarios, but always tied back to human connection. And so I would say that for my narrative stories, um, I I take inspiration from human connection. I'm very interested in how relationships work, not exactly relationships, but I would say relationships, parental relationships between mother and daughter, father and daughter. So I think you'll see one or two stories in my book where I discuss relationships between a father um, and his family. And of course, there was that story about the bride jilted at the altar. But I would not say that these are in any way related to my own personal experiences, but it's just my own fascination with human connections in general.
I think there's a lot more, like you said, there's a lot more relationships to explore in the world, like sibling relationships, parental relationships, like as you mentioned. Um, and yeah, I think sometimes we draw upon our own experiences, but we also draw upon other experiences or things that we read, and kind of intertwine that into our own writing.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my writing comes sporadically. It's not, it is not structured. I wish I was that kind of person, but the reality is, I think most of us aren't. So, um, actually keep a diary. So, I I am an avid diary writer. I keep a diary beside my bed. Of course, nobody's allowed to read it, but but um, that's that's where I write. Um, I I write around that bedside table. So um, even though it's just a bedside table, I will write with my back on my bed, and I will just write on the floor if I have an idea, or I will write on my bed. I will just scribble down all my ideas that pop into my head, and I just keep it in that one journal. And of course, the journals keep running out, but I always have to make sure to keep a journal by me. That's not only how I structure my writing, but it's how I keep myself sane. That's how I keep myself grounded. So, but if we're talking about um, editing, writing after I have those sporadic sessions, I honestly don't have a set 2 p.m. I'm going to write, but I will sit at this very spot. I will go on my computer and I'll usually transcribe my handwritten pieces. I'm a pen to paper kind of person, so I will write it to on a piece of paper on my journal, and then I usually transcribe it on my laptop and I go through it, edit it. But the only thing that goes on my laptop is editing. I don't like writing on my laptop for my short stories and my creative writing. Of course, if it's academic writing, I'm forced to type on my laptop most of the time, especially during the pandemic. But for my creative writing, I think I work best pen to paper. Doesn't really matter the setting, in my opinion. Doesn't really matter the time, as long as I have my trusty journal and a pencil or a pen. I'm pretty flexible in that way.
Yeah.
I'm not really I don't really have a second book in mind. That's actually a question I get so much. people receive the book and the minute they get it, they're like, when is your second book coming out? Like it's something that's expected and something that is demanded, but I am waiting until my writing matures again because I think I'm very proud of my work now in this book. And I think that this writing is a reflection of the the level of my writing that I am currently at throughout my 16 years of existence. I think this is what this book is a reflection of how I've grown as a writer up to this point. And I don't think that I've gotten enough of a chance to grow even more, especially with school being so demanding at this time, junior year, coming into senior year. I don't think it's the right time for me to start on a new project because I want to wait until I can be proud of another piece of work, be proud of another collection of my work. And I as for your question, I don't have a publication date in mind, but I still write. I don't know what I would do without writing, without my diary, of course. But to be showing that to the world anytime soon, I don't think that's happening yet.
Yeah. Maybe you can create a memoir with your diary. I think that's completely understandable. That might be actually a much wiser decision.
Yeah. Speaking from my own experience, I would say don't be too scared. I mentioned this previously, but I was really insecure of my writing. I didn't think that anyone would want to pay money to read my work, wouldn't want to contribute their time and attention to reading my stories. But trust me, as long as you get some good advice and make sure that this advice is not held back or it's totally raw, so you can totally improve your writing. But you have to take that first step. You have to take that first step to want to have your writing reviewed, to want to have your writing read by somebody else other than you. And yeah, if you're a budding writer, I would say just don't be too scared. Just put your work out there and have someone read it. That's the first step, really. Have someone read it. I had my mom read it. You don't have to go too far. Just ask your sister to read it, your dad, your mom. And I can assure you that if you are really serious about your writing, you won't be afraid to receive constructive criticism to improve even more, because writing is a gradual process. And I know that even though I'm satisfied with my work right now, if I read it 5 years in the future, I think that I will look back and think I have gone so far from this. And yeah, just don't be scared. Just go ahead, have someone read your work and receive and be ready for some criticism, because trust me, you need it.
Definitely wise words of wisdom from Future herself. And yeah, just thank you so much again, Putri, for joining us. And I'm sure viewers enjoyed the conversation and gained a lot of valuable insight from your experiences. And so, to our viewers, stay on the lookout for the next installment of our speaker series. And remember to check out our website at BookOrators.org and our social media at BookOrators on Facebook and Instagram for more updates.